Welcome to Idaho Fish and Game's Hook and Bulletin podcast, your weekly news roundup of hunting, fishing, trapping, and conservation stories from around the Gem State. Hosted by Fish and Game's Public Information Specialist, Connor J. Lease.
And welcome back to Idaho Fish and Game's Hook and Bulletin podcast. Lots to talk about today, including helping restoring winter range after the valley fire, the inner workings of Idaho's steelhead, and when a river otter trapping season hits its quota. But first, an important reminder to non-residents who might be gearing up for Idaho's unofficial shed antler hunting season. This time of year, shed hunters, myself included, get excited about hitting the hills looking for antlers left behind by Idaho's big game animals. However, it's important to remember that those who are not legal Idaho residents are now required to purchase a non-resident Idaho license for hunting big game in order to legally pick up antlers in Idaho. This new rule went into effect on July 1st, 2024. According to Idaho Code 36-508, quote, a non-resident collecting, possessing, or transporting antlers or horns shed from deer, elk, moose, or pronghorn in the state shall be required to first procure a license entitling the non-resident to hunt big game. End quote. However, this license requirement does not apply to non-residents under 12 years of age, provided they are accompanied in the field by a non-resident who is the holder of a valid Idaho hunting license for big game or a resident. So what's up with this new rule? Well, the intent is to protect wintering wildlife by reducing overcrowding on the hill among shed hunters, especially during those occasions when neighboring states enact their own shed hunting closures. When neighboring states have an emergency closure, that action can often drive shed hunters to other states like Idaho, where shed hunting may still be open, which is exactly what we saw during the severe winter of 22 and 23. An influx of extra people on the landscape can make wintering wildlife even more vulnerable to increased disturbance, and that's true even during an average winter. Another question we often see is, didn't Idaho recently ban shed hunting during winter and early spring? Not exactly. So in 2023, the Idaho State Legislature gave the Idaho Fish and Game Commission the authority to set emergency shed hunting closures as needed. With significant public support, the commission temporarily closed shed hunting in Idaho's southeast and upper Snake regions from January 1st through April 14th back in 2024 in order to help reduce stress on wintering big game and help eastern Idaho mule deer herds recover following that harsh winter. However, this action did not necessarily mean that Idaho would see shed hunting closures like that every single year. The commission agreed to take each year on a case-by-case basis and would address emergency closures based on input from Idaho Fish and Game and from you, the public. As for 2025, no shed hunting closure has been proposed for any part of the state because so far, our winter has been relatively mild. If you got a non-resident buddy who enjoys shed hunting in Idaho, please remind them of the new license requirement. And be sure to check out Idaho Fish and Game's website and social media channels for information about future antler gathering closures. All right, time to talk about steelhead. Anybody who's spent some time in Idaho's wild spaces can tell you that our stream systems come in many different varieties. We have small brooks that trickle over cascading rocks. We have roaring rivers that meander through valleys and slice through canyons. Most streams, however, fall somewhere in between, and one of the best things about them is the fish they produce. Steelhead, along with Chinook and sockeye salmon, all rear in these streams as juveniles. But unlike their salmon counterparts, which usually spend only 1 year in natal streams before migrating out to the ocean, steelhead often hang around a little bit longer. Some do migrate out as 1-year-olds, however, some may stay in the stream for up to 6 years before they enter the process of smolting and then head out to sea. But why? Well, it all depends on the stream. Steelhead need to reach the right size, about 7 inches or so, before they head out. In less productive streams, fish grow slowly so they stay in the system longer. In more productive streams, fish grow rapidly and migrate at a younger age. Take, for example, the differences between Rapid River near Riggins and the Passamaroy River south of Salmon. Both are tributaries of the Salmon River, but the steelhead smolts they produce are very different. This is because the stream environments in which these fish live are quite dissimilar. Rapid River is less productive than the Pacimmeroy, and here's why. Rapid River is shallow and steep, clocks in at about 22.8 miles long, and it drops over 4,800 feet from its headwaters to its conjunction with the Little Salmon River. It tumbles down the eastern slope of the Seven Devils mountain range and is largely fed by snowmelt runoff. Fish and Game uses scales collected from migrating smolts to age these fish. These ages are used to assess populations and help biologists manage the fisheries. Scale agers use the alternating bands of wide, or in this case, summer growth, and slow, or winter growth, to determine the fish's ages. If you take a look at Leslie Reinhardt's story, linked below, you can see there's quite a difference between Rapid River and Pacimmeroy River juvenile steelhead scales. These scales were taken from fish that were about the same size and at the same time, but the Rapid River fish is twice the age of the Pacimmeroy fish. Hats off to Leslie Reinhardt, one of our fishery technicians who penned this cool blog story. Head on over to our website if you want to learn more. Okay, just a bit further south down Highways 95 and 55, we got this next story off the desk of Jordan Messner, McCall's Regional Fisheries Manager. Anglers have begun creating a parking area on the Hot Springs Wildlife Management Area along Stonebreaker Lane near the Sugarloaf State Park Unit, an area where vehicle use is prohibited by the Bureau of Reclamation's management plan for Lake Cascade. In BOR's management plan, land surrounding Lake Cascade falls into one of three categories: recreation sites, conservation open space, or wildlife management area. All BOR recreation sites are managed by Idaho Department of Parks and Recreation for recreational use. The other two categories primarily serve other purposes, and parking your car there is not permitted in those areas. The Bureau of Reclamation is officially looking to prohibit further vehicle use on the Hot Springs Wildlife Management Area. Their staff have posted the area as closed to vehicle traffic and has implemented the closure effective immediately. In addition, the snowmobile access gate immediately adjacent to this location has been closed in order to prevent further unauthorized vehicle use through that gate. These issues have occurred as a direct result of low snow and users traveling where vehicle use is strictly prohibited. As soon as snow prevents further vehicle travel down Stonebreaker Lane, the snowmobile access gate will be reopened. In the meantime, Fish and Game will maintain the Access Yes parking area at the entrance of Stonebreaker Lane, and access is allowed at the Sugarloaf boat ramp and at the small pullout on the Bureau of Reclamation's land at the top of the hill until those locations are no longer accessible due to snow. Keep in mind that Stonebreaker Lane is not maintained during the winter. And folks, you can help promote responsible and appropriate use of this area by adhering to the Bureau of Reclamation's rules associated with land use around Lake Cascade. Approved and maintained access areas managed by Idaho Parks and Rec are located at Blue Heron, Van Wyck, Boulder Creek, and Poison Creek. The Fish and Game Access Yes location at the entrance to Stonebreaker Lane is also a maintained access site. For more information about winter access on Lake Cascade, please contact the McCall Fish and Game office at 208-634-8137, the Lake Cascade State Park office at 208-382-6544, or the Middle Snake Bureau of Reclamation office at 208-383-2251. And with that, it's time for the Rapid Fire Bulletin. Idaho Fish and Game will be using a helicopter to aerially seed sagebrush on the Boise River Wildlife Management Area on Thursday, January 30th, as part of the ongoing habitat rehabilitation efforts following the 2024 Valley Fire. The area being seeded is within the portion of the WMA that is closed to the public through March 31st. This closure was put in place in November to facilitate these rehabilitation efforts and to protect wintering big game animals. As such, there should be no impacts to recreationists here. However, low-flying helicopter activity may be visible from areas that remain open to the public. The Idaho Fish and Game Citizen Shooting Range Advisory Committee will hold its second meeting on February 6, which is tonight, at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time at Fish and Game's headquarters building at 600 South Walnut Street in Boise. The meeting will be streamed live via Zoom. However, members of the public in attendance or online can observe the meeting but there will be no opportunities for public comment or interaction with the committee during its meeting. Hey, in case you missed it, speaking of meetings, you can watch the full recap of the January 29th Commission meeting now on our YouTube channel. Topics covered include the 2025 through 2030 Idaho Black Bear Management Plan, non-resident tag issuance advisory group recommendations, and the 2025 through 2026 season setting for moose, bighorn sheep, and mountain goats. Every agenda item is time-stamped so you can easily jump to whatever topics are important to you. Hit the link below and rewatch it on your lunch break. The river otter trapping season in the Panhandle region closed on January 27th after the harvest quota was met on January 24th. Trappers can call 1-800-323-4334 or see our otter trapping quota webpage, linked below, for the most up-to-date statewide information on otter harvest limits and closures. Okay, that's it for this week's stories. It's time for our question of the week. This week's question comes to us from Mark S. Mark asks, why regulate shed hunting when there are so many other outdoor activities happening this time of year? It is true that any recreation that disturbs wintering big game can be an issue, especially in the late winter and spring when an animal's fat reserves are depleting. We, Fish and Game, cannot regulate most outdoor recreation unless it's on property that we own or manage. However, shed hunting is a wildlife-based activity that we do have the authority to regulate. We encourage all recreationists to keep wildlife in mind, especially during winter when they're most vulnerable. Hope this helps. All right, that's all the news we have for this week. Thanks for putting an ear to Idaho Fish and Game's Hook and Bulletin podcast. If there's something on your mind or if you got a question related to fish and game matters, feel free to drop us a line at podcast@idfg.idaho.gov. Again, that's podcast@idfg.idaho.gov. Thanks for listening, folks. We'll catch you next week.